And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Another day, another narrative to destroy. Today, we're featuring one of YouTube's premier space cadets and taking a blowtorch to the delusional narratives he and his fellow astronauts have been polluting the boxing streets with for years. So let's welcome our good friend IBFP and see what sort of intergalactic nonsense he's cooked up this time.
But the WBC had approved a 2-week extension for you to choose the mandatory position at 168 or 175. You shouldn't need 2 weeks to determine whether you want to fight Canelo for mandatory or not. You need to enforce your mandatory. You need to immediately say, I want Canelo, and if he don't want to fight me, I want his belt. Strip him. That's what you need to say if you're David Benavidez. Because David Benavidez, make no mistake, you can't call Canelo Alvarez a duck if you don't enforce your mandatory.
And there you have it right there. Why didn't David enforce his mandatory? Why didn't David activate his mandatory? I'm sure you've heard those terms thrown around a lot in the last few years in the boxing streets. Usually, when a Canelo cultist is pressed about why Canelo Alvarez never fought David Benavidez. This argument often comes from a community that believes in unicorns, fairies, flat earth, and enforcing mandatories, all things that don't really exist in reality. Because Canelo dick riders don't live in reality, they live in an alternate reality. Now, why didn't David enforce his mandatory? Why didn't David activate his mandatory? Great questions, and I'm very happy to answer them for you, you pencil necked twerp. Because he couldn't. Newsflash, there is no such thing as a fighter enforcing a mandatory, you stupid prick. It's as real as unicorns or you having a functioning brain. Pure fantasy. Now, I know your brain has probably seized up by this onslaught of reality, but take a deep breath and try to pay attention as you get educated with the facts you seem so allergic to. Let's think about it. If a fighter actually had the power to activate a mandatory and force a champion to fight them, it would be one of the most powerful tools in the sport. It would be career altering, life altering. The difference between staying a contender or becoming a world champion. It would be so significant, you'd think it would surely be mentioned in a WBC rulebook. But guess what? It's not. Don't believe me? Go ahead, look for it. You won't find a single line in the WBC rules giving a fighter the right to activate a mandatory. It doesn't exist. It's a made up concept. Like IBFP having a brain. A lie. Still don't believe me? Try finding a single example in boxing history where a fighter activated the mandatory status and forced a champion to fight them. You won't. It never happened. What about petitions? I see fighters sometimes petition and get the fight. Why didn't David do the same? Is that the same as enforcing or activating a mandatory? No, it's not. And let me explain why. Before we dive in, let's look at what the word petition actually means. Because over here, facts matter. Petition, a formal written request made to an authority. Keyword request. A request has no agency. By definition, it has no power, no authority. It's just asking. The WBC has the agency, it has the authority. They can grant or deny it. So pretending a fighter has the authority to force a title fight is pure nonsense. So why do people invent this mythical concept and pretend it's real? It's a deflection. It's a weak, dishonest attempt to shift blame away from Canelo, the fighter who ducked Benavidez for years, and put it on the contender instead, as if it was David's fault that the fight never happened. Let's be clear. Anyone still talking about activating or enforcing mandatories is either a dumbass, a liar, or basically a Canelo Alvarez dick rider. Now, did David do everything possible to twist the WBC's arm? Did he petition? He sure did. But more importantly, he did more than just send a letter for Suleiman to wipe his ass with. He spent 2 years telling the world, every media outlet, every interview that he wanted to fight, that he was Canelo's mandatory, that he was ready, that he wanted to fight. That, ladies and gentlemen, is a petition, a public one, and it's far more effective than a formal letter they'll ignore anyway, because in doing so, he built tremendous public pressure on the WBC to order the fight. As for the WBC, Suleiman has played a major role in spreading confusion about the mandatory situation, constantly contradicting himself and using deliberately vague language when it comes to David's status. Before the plant fight, he publicly stated on video that the winner would become the mandatory. Then, after David beat Andrade, he said David still needed to confirm his mandatory status. And again in March 24, he repeated that line, despite having already declared multiple times that David was the official mandatory for Canelo. So which is it? He keeps shifting the goalposts. And why was he doing it? Because he was protecting Canelo and being a total piece of shit. We all know that. Anybody with a brain was able to realize that. Now, everybody with a brain obviously doesn't include Canelo dick riders.
But the fact that this man has publicly called for Canelo and you actually walk away when the fight is mandated instead of enforcing your mandatory shows you never wanted the Canelo fight. The fact that you asked for not one but two extensions shows that you never wanted the Canelo fight. The fact that he's never put in the work to actually get the fight made shows that David Benavidez was never serious about fighting Canelo Alvarez. If you were serious, why did you need two extensions to decide whether you were going to mandate the fight or not? Why? It doesn't make any sense.
Now, the reason it doesn't make sense is because you're a dumbass. The reason it doesn't make sense is because you need to call tech support to change a light bulb. Let me try and help you make sense of what happened. After Canelo blatantly ducked Benavidez 3 times by choosing Charlo, Munguia, and then Berlanga, David was wondering whether he should continue wasting his time to see if the ginger coward would finally find the balls to fight him, or give up and move on. He ultimately decided Canelo was too much of a coward to ever fight him, and decided to move up. You see, it makes perfect logical sense. Unlike your dribble about Benavidez being scared of Canelo, the WBC gave him an ultimatum: pick a division to remain in. Somehow that got twisted into the narrative that David was offered the chance to activate his mandatory at either 168 or 175 and chose 175 instead. That's complete horseshit. The truth is simple. He wasn't given a choice to activate anything. He was told he couldn't be ranked as a mandatory in 2 divisions at the same time, and he had to pick one. That's all it was. But it gets better. These clowns are so stupid, they don't even understand the implications of their own arguments. If you're saying Benavidez refused to activate his mandatory, then you're implying he had the power to make the fight and chose not to. Let that sink in. You're telling me the one fighter who's been calling out Canelo for years, the one guy who sent him multiple offers, somehow didn't want the fight? That's your logic? The fighter who's been chasing the biggest fight in boxing for years actually didn't want the fight? Meanwhile, every bum with gloves, from Rocky Fielding to Yildirim to Bumlanger, Bumgia, Skull, even Jake Paul, they all wanted it, but not David Benavidez. You have to be a special breed of stupid to believe that. Who the hell ducks Canelo? Who the hell doesn't want to fight Canelo? In reality, it's the opposite. They can't wait to fight Canelo. It's literally called the Canelo sweepstakes. Who the fuck ducks sweepstakes? It's literally not possible to think up a dumber narrative than David Benavidez ducking Canelo Alvarez. It's literally peak stupid, which actually sort of makes sense. Because IBFP is literally the human incarnation of peak stupid. So to sum it up, Despite all the squealing and squawking from these intellectual peanuts, the truth is simple. No fighter has the power to force a sanctioning body to order a fight. They can ask, they can be ignored. And the WBC ignored Benavidez because the WBC were protecting the golden goose, Canelo, and David was powerless to stop them. That's reality. And no amount of fake news from space cadets is going to change it. So, ladies and gentlemen, from now on, anytime you hear anyone reference the terms enforcing a mandatory, activating a mandatory, you can rest assured they are a fucking moron.
Only thing I'm gonna say is, so that was a legitimate body bag.
You're damn right it was.